Greetings, dear viewer. Welcome back to yet another episode on Women Engage. My name is Ifijana Tieno, and today I have a special guest who is also a personal friend. And she works in the hotel and tourism industry. And yes, as you've guessed, that is what you're going to be talking about. Working in the hotel and tourism industry, and specifically we'll be exploring number one, working outside the country and working in a multicultural society, and how working away from friends and family, what that does to your life, you know, how it affects your health or the benefits that comes with it, because it also brings a lot of exposure. So that is what we'll be talking about today. If you're joining us for the first time and you're new here, welcome and stay with us as we navigate the different things in womanhood, especially in the 21st century, at the feet of Jesus. If you're a recurring viewer, welcome back, and we hope you keep staying with us. Now I will allow our guest to introduce herself. Hi, Lynette.
Hi, Effie.
I call her Nettie, but for today, for formality purposes, I will call you Lynette. Kindly introduce yourself. This is your camera. You can introduce yourself to the audience, tell us who you are, and then we can kickstart the session.
Okay, my name is Lynette Akinyi. I'm a hotelier by profession. I studied at International Hotel and Tourism Institute in Kileleshwa. And yes, I'm a professional housekeeper.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you so much. At the moment, you know, we were just talking about what you do and working in a cruise ship. Maybe we can start by you just telling us a little bit about that. How did you find yourself there?
Before I went to study hospitality, it's something I always wanted to do. If I didn't make it to the cruise ship, I would be an air hostess. Mm-hmm. And I tried that. I tried Kenya Airways, I tried Etihad, I tried Qatar, Emirates. I never made it there. Mm-hmm. So one day the way you do jobs online, somebody does a post on a Telegram hospitality group, and he's like, Royal Caribbean are recruiting, if you're interested, come to Italy. Mm-hmm. Most people were like, no, this can't be true. But I went, I spent the whole day there from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mm-hmm. No food, no water. It's just emails and all that. But at the end of it, we had an offer letter and we were officially part of Royal Caribbean.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. And you know, when we were just having a conversation about this, we're discussing how it's interesting that you're working at sea. So like for every 9 months to 12 months, you're completely disconnected from your friends, from your family, and everything you know about this life. Yes. How is that for you?
Okay, for the first time, it was something I really wanted, mm-hmm. So I wasn't really shocked. But what you know on paper is really different from what you actually find. So you're leaving your country. For someone who had never actually left Africa, mm-hmm. It was a shocker. At first, it's not so bad because your friends are there with you at the airport, they're praying for you. Once you pass Emirates, mm-hmm. with your suitcases, it's like, oh no, I'm actually leaving home. Yeah. You can't cry because you're like, this is something I wanted. Mm-hmm. You get to a new country, you don't know anyone, they sent you paperwork, so you really have to read the paperwork, mm-hmm. and not get lost. Then you go to the hotel, you're meeting a roommate. When I reached the roommate I had, she was from Indonesia. I had never met anyone from Indonesia, but she was really nice. Their English is not fluent, but we could understand each other because we left the hotel. We had just met 5 minutes, left the hotel, changed, went to Amsterdam. We don't understand the language, but we took a train and just went and came back.
Wow.
Yeah, so sometimes you just have to be open-minded, and change will be there for sure. Mm. So just once you decide this is what I want to do, just tell yourself, we prayed about this, God gave it to me, He's gonna make it work.
Yeah,
yes.
Now you have to deal with it.
Yes, you just have to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think even going to university and getting a Kenyan roommate is trouble. I never experienced that myself other than high school. Yeah. Now you can imagine someone from a totally different continent. It's insane.
Yeah, that's hard because you've been raised differently than you're mm-hmm. African. There's a way African mothers make you see life. Mm-hmm. Then you're meeting people who are given freedom pretty much from the time they're born. Yeah. They can talk to you however they like. They can do whatever it is they mm-hmm. want. And then there's you who you're used to. You wake up, you pray, you do this work.
Life.
Yes, you eat specific things, but yes, then you really have to adapt because there's really nothing you can do to these people. That is how they're raised.
Now there's something about working in the hotel industry. and tourism particularly, because most times you tend to work in a very diverse society culturally.
Yeah.
There are people, especially like in the cruise ship, there are people from various countries.
70 countries.
70 countries,
Yeah.
just imagine. So you're interacting with a myriad of cultures, yet you're particularly used to a specific culture, you're particularly used to a specific way of life. How do you navigate the cultural differences that come with your job? Because I can imagine me just meeting someone from a different tribe, that is a lot of work. That is a lot of work on its own. How do you navigate the cultural differences in such a diverse society?
I think you just have to, okay, for me, I had to you have to embrace people because you're going to meet, not everybody likes you. There's someone who doesn't like you there's someone who actually doesn't like you because you're a woman. There's someone who doesn't like you because you're black. There's someone who doesn't like you because you're from Kenya. And there's someone who doesn't like you because you're African, or they just don't like you. And all these 5 people, you work with them on a day-to-day basis. You eat in the same place and you sleep with one of these people in the same cabin. So sometimes you just have to, sometimes you just keep quiet and just let it go, because if you keep, because the work environment itself, it's already, on land you work under pressure. At sea, you're working under very high pressure.
Yeah.
So once you let these small things get to you, you're really going to get depressed. Yeah.
And that's something that maybe we should address a little bit. I know you're a Christian yourself. I mean, we've met when we were in a Christian school, so we've been raised. I understand the background. Being raised in a very conservative and a very Christian home, then you're exposed to a lot of liberal thinking. And that's one thing I've figured with a lot of people from the West. You're exposed to a lot of liberal thinking. How then do you reconcile not sounding like you're judging people, or not sounding like you're just being too close-minded, as they would say? How do you navigate that while also ensuring that you are a Christian, you maintain your Christian way of life, you maintain your Christian views, and also you can talk about life as a Christian at sea, because I don't think they have churches in the cruise ships.
No, they do. Okay, not a church, but we have a priest on board, and there's normally masses on Sunday. So if you want, you can go for the masses. But most of the time, you'll find Adventists won't go for the mass. You'll just go to work on Sunday. Then we work 7 days a week for your whole contract, which is either 9 to 10 months. So it's up to you, whichever time you have, because we don't work more than 14 hours a day. So in the 14 hours, it's you to decide what time you're going to give God and what time you're going to do for entertainment, what time, all those things you have to schedule them, because you also need sleep. Yeah. Then for the different, there's freedom outside there. The freedom we have here, it's this. Outside there, it's a whole jar of freedom. So it's you to decide, because everything is at your disposal. Okay, for crew, I think people normally have this mentality that crew members they don't have life. That's a lie. Everything you have on land, it's in our cruise ship. Yes, it's a small Nairobi in itself. So you have the shops. If you want to just go window shopping, the shops are there. You want to go buy books, clothes, everything is there. The bars, all that, whatever you want, they're right at your disposal, and they're much cheaper than on land. So once you forget who you are and why you're there, the influence, it's very easy, because one week on land is 1 day at sea. That's how fast. Let me give you a scenario. We've met. I've never seen you before. I meet you in the morning at breakfast. By lunch, we are best friends. By dinner time, we're inseparable. That's how fast it goes. Yes, that's how fast. So you just have to remember. Actually, the number 1 rule, don't forget what took you there. You know the troubles that made you leave home. You know who depends on you back home. So it's you to remember why you're there and stick to that. Because also spending money, there are people who go out at sea and still come back broke. As much as you're being paid in dollars and euros, you're going to come back broke. Because there's so many things. Let's say you want to buy a pair of sneakers. In Nairobi, it's maybe a good brand, 3,000. Abroad, $5, $15, 10 euros, 12 euros, you have something very nice. So it's much more cheaper. And this is money that is not taxed. You get tips. So You spend, then you're like, I still have 5 months to go. I'll save the last 3 months. You spend.
Oh my God.
By the end of the contract, you're going home, you only have maybe $200 or $400 to your name.
Yeah.
And you've been paid, give or take, quite a large amount of money, but you spent it all. Yes.
I can imagine. Wow. Now, it's like being in such an environment where, number one, you're away from the guardianship of family, away from conversation with friends, except maybe through phone calls. You are away from guidance of maybe your preachers or your teachers in church and all that. I tend to think it can be very hard to be a Christian because, number one, it interferes with your day of worship. Considering most of the people there might not even be Adventists, for example. So you either have to figure out your own worship time on your own or go with the flow, and that's where a majority get lost. So how do you personally, as Lynette, maintain your relationship with God despite working in such an environment and turning off all the chaos?
Okay, I told myself, as I pack my luggage and my suitcases, I always make sure as I weigh the weight, my Bible has to be part of it. So whatever extra kilo, I'd rather remove clothes to make sure my Bible is part of it. Then okay, sometimes we have internet, but the internet is also quite expensive because we buy the internet. So if you are given free internet for maybe 120 minutes per week, you have to decide, am I going to download a sermon and watch it? Or will I live till Sabbath and watch the live on that day? Which means if you watch the live on that day, you're not calling your family, you're not calling anybody. That's it. So you have to really plan on how to do it. Then also sometimes if you call home, it's also good to tell your family they should just pray for you and your friends. Every time they should remember you because the sea is very uncertain. Things happen on board. You just never know. They are still man-made vessels. They're being driven by men. As much as they've gone to school and they're very good at it, mistakes still happen. So sometimes your family needs to pray for you, and then we're also encouraged to update your family on what's going on in your life. Weather changes can, okay, when you see, let's see, I work for Celebrity Cruises and a Celebrity Apex. Celebrity Apex has more than 130 tons. That's how much it weighs.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just the ship without us, without the goods, without ballast water and all that, just the ship itself. So a small, let's say you are crossing, we're going to be doing a crossing from the United States into Europe. This crossing, it's that number of 6 days, so many things can go wrong. Because once they see the weather
gets rough, then you're down.
You're asleep. Okay, we're turning. Okay. Your things are falling. Then you're getting dizzy. People are throwing up. Yeah, it's chaotic. But then you just have to tell yourself, most of the time when it rains for me, I'll go upstairs on the open deck and just sing showers of blessing. I'll just be like, okay, that's good.
Oh, wow.
Then when it's too rocky, you just remember he calmed the sea. This is part of it. And being out there, you really see the wonders of God. Because you'll be there, 1 minute, you're looking outside, you're like, wait, we're having escorts. Dolphins are giving us a ride. Okay, that's good. That's a good sign. Sometimes you're looking outside in Iceland, the whales are right there. They don't have any business to attack you. They're just there. And yeah, so such things you look and you're like, because let me give you an example. I love nature. So the first time I went to Norway, my friends had told me, I have a friend from Dominica, she's called Jermaine. She had given me a heads up on how nice it is. But then them saying it, when I got there, I was in shock. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. God took his time and did this creation perfectly. So it's amazing.
Wow. Like you actually see what God meant when he looked at his creation and said it is good.
Yes, definitely.
And it is good. Oh my God. I love how in this kind of work you get to see, you know, some of us are cooped up in our office. Our studio guys are just in this studio watching us and all that. But when you're out there, you actually get to see the wonders of God. You know, when you sing the wonders of it all, you actually get to see how vast the ocean is, how vast the seas are. You get to see the creations of God in the water, things that some of us here might never ever get to interact with unless we take ourselves to Mombasa, of which because of human interactions there, they already go further into the sea. And it's fascinating how you get to now worship God through nature. And that's not something, you know, for us now, worship is every Sabbath, I'm out of my house, I go to church. You can literally go outside and look at the dolphins and look at the sea and say, this is God's creation. How marvelous are your works. I love that.
That's true. And there's this, normally, have you ever woken up one morning, you go outside and you watch the sunrise. How you see it from your house and how you see it when there's zero obstacles, it's very different. There's a way you see, okay, let's say it's 6 a.m. 6 a.m. the sunrise is, let's say this is our drawing board, it's here. You will see the different colors from red to orange to all that. You get to experience that. You see the sunset. Then also the things we don't have in Africa because we live at the equator, we're a tropical country. When you go outside there, you actually realize Mombasa is nice. But a place like the Bahamas, that water is clear. You'll be down to the sand. Then such things, you're like, okay. And when you tell them like that's your first time seeing that, they also don't understand. How? Because they're like, how? Where do you come from?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so such things, it's very nice. Then the time zones, when you hear like someone is like, oh, you've called me, I was asleep. They don't get it. They called you at 3 p.m. Kenyan time, you're deep asleep. But people don't get it. Then you go to places like Iceland where it's midnight. The sun is shining shining at midnight. But then they're so used to it, they go and sleep. For you, you have to adapt to that every single time you go there.
You know, I think one thing I'm learning from this is that I should travel more, because if I can get to appreciate God's creation the way you do, you're literally talking about the sunrise and how magnificent it is. Because you know what, I won't even go into that, but I need to travel more. We need to travel more, guys. Let's travel. Thank you so much for sharing that experience with us. Now, this, again, being in such a diverse society, I'm sure from your Christian upbringing, what are some of the principles that you are taught that you still maintain and helps you navigate your work out there? Because one thing the Bible even says, train up a child in the way he should go, and they will never depart from it. So there are those lessons that you've been taught while back home in church with your Pathfinder teachers, your adventure teachers and all that, that when you go there have helped you navigate that society. And number one, avoid things like conflict. When people are so different, you're so different with everyone who's there. Avoid unnecessary conflict. Avoid being swayed into a certain form of worship that is not what we're used to. So how have your Christian principles helped you to navigate that?
Okay, first thing, the same way you said conflict. Conflict, if you don't look for the conflict, it's gonna look for you on board. That's for sure. So for me, the first thing is you just give the same respect you give to the elders and the adults back home. You give the same to those people. For us, the respect is given by, we'll be working in the same department, same section, or maybe then you get promoted. Once we have 4 stripes, 5, the captain or the master has the most stripes. So of course, his goes without saying. Yes. So as much as the same respect you give to a first officer is the same respect you give to your fellow cleaner, is the same respect you give to a steward. It goes all round, but not everybody knows that. So sometimes, yes, for me, I'll just obedience, just obey. You went there to work. If they say do it, you do the job, complain later. Saves you a lot of drama. No matter how angry you are, do the job, complain later, go to your cabin, take your 2 pillows and just scream your head off. Then you go eat, sleep, wake up tomorrow and try again.
But then that makes me question. Like you said at the beginning, you find these people also, the same way you're also meeting them for the first time, they're also not exposed to that diversity of cultures. So you find a lot of social experiences such as racism. How do you deal with that? Remember, you're a Christian, so you can't just say, I'll throw a punch and I'm done with it. Okay,
throwing a punch will make you lose your job, so that's a no-no. Normally, okay, I've told you this story. When the first time I went to Germany, for me I was so excited. I mean, I've never been to Germany. Wademunda is a beautiful port. So my friend and I, we decided, okay, this is our first time. Let's go have food. The first restaurant we went to, everyone is being served. You're just seated. And they were all white. We were just 2 black women. So we were like, okay. Then we went to this, we asked like, hi, okay. She was just like, unfortunately, I don't mean to be rude, but we don't serve blacks here. We said thank you, walked away. We went down the street to another restaurant. At the door, they just told us no. With this, no. So we left. We were like, okay, if we can't eat, we can at least have ice cream. We went to the ice cream shop. There's this gentleman, he was actually really nice. I think they worked with a certain lady. She wasn't there at the time. He made us, it was 2 scoops of flavors I had never tried, which was fascinating. The lady came, she saw us, she was like, she said something in German, which I couldn't pick, but whatever it was, from the tone, it wasn't nice. The next thing we knew, the ice creams were shoved at us, and she told us to just leave. We tried giving her the €5. She was like, no, just take your money, and please don't come back to our shop. So we were like, okay. We went back on board, told this story to a few of our friends from the Caribbean. Then they were like, what? Who told you to go outside? You should have slept. We didn't know.
Oh my
so
God.
all the blacks knew it, us we didn't know.
And for me, new to the shop.
Yes, that was a shocker. But it was the only place. Every other place, if they were racist, they didn't show it.
How then can you minister to people in such an environment?
It's not that easy, but sometimes you'll make friends and they'll be willing. So in the midst of the friendship, while you're sharing, you could always throw in a word or two. And sometimes if you can't do that, for me, the easiest way is always just charity. If I can't reach to you, I'll do my best to do something that actually makes you be like, okay, I wanted this, but God did that. So indirectly, that works. But then you also have to respect everybody. We all worship God under different names. So respect their religion. If it doesn't go with what you are taught, just let it be sometimes. Yes, because you don't know, provoking. There's one thing about people. Once you're on board, you're at a very... your mindset changes. Any little thing can provoke you to heights, to even you yourself have never reached those heights. So to avoid that, once you don't agree on beliefs or culture, just let it be.
Wow.
Yes.
And I think that's very interesting, because that is essentially speaking in a hostile environment, like the way Paul went to minister to the Romans, and they were, you know, they knew of a God, and they even have sacrifices offered and structures made to a God they do not know. And I can imagine how difficult it would be to minister. So God has placed you in this place where he still expects you to do his work despite the hardships. And it's good to hear that you're actually trying to make small efforts here and there to actually minister. And that is some good work. Now, even as we bring this to a conclusion, maybe there's just someone who is listening out there and is wondering, okay, how do I get into this space? Or how do they're already in this space, maybe they're also on break like you, working in the airplanes, exposed to so many different clients. Because, you know, again, with clients, they are passing. You can't know people constantly. They come, they go, you remain there. What one piece of advice can you give them to help them navigate working in such a diverse or multicultural environment? And just one thing you tell them, and you can also tell them some of the culture shocks you've experienced.
Just be you. You've been raised. No, remember what you were raised. Okay, remember what your mother said, and stick to that. Yes, stick to that. If the people will try and sway you, and okay, normally how do I say this? I want to translate it. Pick your friends the same way you go through when you're, how do we call this? The rice, you're picking out the stones. Yes, that's how you pick out your friends. For me, I had, let's say, 2 friends for a whole contract, and it worked for me. It saved me a lot of trouble. We'll be colleagues, that's fine. But the friends you go out with and hang out with after work, that matters. So pick your friends very carefully, and as much as respect your superiors. This job is very hard to get. It's very expensive to get it. And one small mistake can send you home.
Yeah.
Yes. Unknowingly, it might be your own mistake you did knowingly. It might be a mistake your friend did, but the cameras had you there as a witness. You go home. So just do what took you there. Do your job. If you have to go eat, just keep the time. Actually, time management there is everything. Keep time, you're safe. Respect the superiors, you're safe. Then just be you. Do what you know best, let it be. Don't, You try learning new things, you're gonna go home.
There's no room for learning. Wow. Stick to what you know.
Stick to what you know. It takes you a long way. Then for the culture shocks, for me it was the diet. Okay, I like rice, but I don't love rice. Eating rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's going back. I'm still dreading eating rice. Yes, so that wasn't nice.
Mm.
Then just the fashion and infrastructure. I actually realized Africa, we are way behind.
Yeah.
Electric trains, you board, you're here 1 minute, 5 minutes later, you're at a very different place.
Wow.
Electric trains, that was a good experience. Then the flights too, you come KQ, you see the difference, you're like, okay. I'm not saying KQ is bad, don't get me wrong, but then you go outside there and you realize they've amped their service levels way higher than we are. Yes.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Lynette.
Thank
you so much for joining us on set. This was a very fascinating conversation. And I'm sure there's someone watching out there and is like, wow, there are people who actually work in places like that. So thank you so much. And to you who's watching us, again, working in a multicultural environment is also not so bad, because you get to be exposed to so many different cultures, so many different ways of life, so many different infrastructure and everything else. And one thing I have learned from this conversation, you can appreciate God's creation from nature, and you can appreciate it a lot. Sabbath and ministry and just thinking about God is not a matter of going to church. It's a matter of finding God in the smallest aspects, such as the sunrise and the sunset, in the vastity of the sea and all that. So this is an encouragement for us to travel more, explore more, and find and appreciate God through nature. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. It was a very fascinating conversation. To all our air hostesses out there and those who work in the cruise ship, we salute you. Some of us can't do what you do. So thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. We hope to see you in other episodes. If you want to check us out or find our other episodes, check us out on all social media platforms. That is Hope Media Network, ECD. And on your television, you can find us on Hope Channel. That is all from us in studio. Goodbye.